I am Elder Eon of the Grath, and I will tell you how humanity saved our people when all others turned away. Oh! The other races call us impossible. They say stones cannot think, cannot feel, cannot live. But we have lived in our crystal forests for millennia, our cities growing from the living rock of our world, our thoughts flowing through lattices of mineral and crystal that are as complex as any carbon-based neural network. I remember the day everything changed. I stood in the heart chamber of our capital city, Resonance, where the great geothermal streams powered our civilization. The chamber walls pulsed with bands of blue and gold energy, the lifeblood of our people flowing through crystalline veins that had taken 10,000 years to grow. Around me, my fellow elders' forms sparkled as they absorbed the energy, their massive bodies of living granite and quartz catching the light like mountains at sunrise. That's when young Shard entered, her crystalline form vibrating with urgency. The patterns of her growth layers, equivalent to what other species would call her age, were still close together, marking her as barely 3 centuries old. "Honored elders," she said, her voice resonating through the mineral-rich air. "The deep space arrays have detected a fleet entering the outer system. It's the Desh." The chamber fell silent. Even the usual soft hum of our crystal technology seemed to quiet. We had heard of the Desh, of course. They were among the newest spacefaring races, aggressive expansionists who viewed the galaxy as resources to be claimed rather than wonders to be shared. "How many ships?" I asked, my own crystalline structure vibrating with concern. "Over 300, Elder Eon, and they're not responding to our standard greeting protocols," he said. I shifted my massive form, the granite and quartz of my body grinding softly as I moved toward our communication array. The crystal screen flickered to life, showing the approaching fleet, sleek, metallic vessels that cut through space like knives. It had been a decade since I last helped unscale battle. "Open a direct channel," I commanded. "Perhaps they simply don't understand our protocols." The screen shifted and we found ourselves facing a Desh commander. Like most carbon-based life forms, they were tiny compared to us, their exoskeletal body covered in iridescent plates that reminded me of our younglings before their first growth spurt. "This is Elder Eon of the Grath. We welcome you to our system and look forward to peaceful—" "Possible," the Desh commander interrupted. "Our scans show no life signs on your world, only mineral deposits, rich ones." Their mandibles clicked in what we would later learn was amusement. "If this is some trick by the actual inhabitants of this system, reveal yourselves now." "We are the inhabitants," I explained, trying to project patience. "The Grath are a silicon-based life form. What you see as mineral deposits are our cities, our forests, our people." The commander's compound eyes flickered. The transmission cut off, leaving us in stunned silence. Young Shard's voice cracked like splitting stone. They don't believe we exist." "Prepare the diplomatic vessels," I ordered, my voice steady despite the fear crystallizing in my core. "Send word to the Galactic Council, the Meridian Alliance, the Federation of Free Worlds. Surely they will not stand by while a recognized sentient species faces extinction." How naive we were then. How foolish to believe that difference would not breed indifference. The next few cycles were a blur of diplomatic missions. Our envoys traveled to every major power, carrying proof of our sentience, our culture, our right to exist. We shared our art, living sculptures that took centuries to grow. We demonstrated our technology, crystal computers that could process data faster than any silicon chip. We showed them our libraries, our music, our history. They found us fascinating, they said. A remarkable curiosity. But when we begged for help against the approaching Desh fleet, we received only philosophical debates about the nature of consciousness and gentle suggestions that perhaps we could relocate our consciousness to new mineral deposits elsewhere. But we are our minerals, young Shard argued at one particularly frustrating council meeting. Our thoughts, our memories, our very souls are encoded in these specific crystalline structures. You cannot simply transfer us like data files. The council representatives nodded politely and scheduled another debate about the definition of life. Meanwhile, the Desh fleet grew closer. Our long-range sensors detected them testing their mining equipment on the outer planet's moons. We watched in horror as they pulverized entire mountain ranges, caring nothing for the complex crystal structures that might have one day grown into new Grath. I remember standing in the heart chamber again, watching our people's energy signatures dim with fear. We had tried everything, reached out to everyone. No one would help. A healer, a professional boxer prize winner, and a novelist. That's when young Shard approached me again, clutching an ancient data crystal. "Elder Eon," she said, her voice vibrating with a frequency I had never heard before. Was it hope? "I found something in the deep archives. 2 centuries ago, we detected an artificial probe passing through our system. Its design was unlike anything we'd seen before. It came from a world called Earth." She projected the probe's images onto the chamber walls. Simple but elegant technology, created by beings who had grown up watching the stars rather than absorbing geological energy. Beings who had dreamed of finding new life among the stars, in whatever form it might take. The probe contained information about its creators, Shard continued. They call themselves humans, and Elder, they're different. Their own world has life in so many forms, in their oceans, in their skies, in microscopic creatures that their eyes cannot even see. They don't just accept different kinds of life. They expect it. I studied the images, feeling something like hope begin to crystallize in my core. Can we reach them? They're far beyond the known trade routes. No one has made official contact yet, but their probe included communication protocols. We can try. I gazed out at my people, at the city that had grown and lived and thought for thousands of years, at the children who were just beginning their first crystal formations, at the ancient ones whose thoughts moved like geological ages. "Send the message," I said. "Tell them everything, and pray they hear us before the Desh arrive." We had no way of knowing then that our prayer would be answered with the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, or that humanity's arrival would change not just our fate, but the very way the galaxy understood life itself. But that is a story for another time. The Desh did not wait 30 rotations. They began their assault on our outer colonies after only 20. Claiming they had detected automated mining operations that proved no sentient life existed there. I watched through our long-range sensors as they approached New Granite, our youngest colony. The settlement was barely 2,000 years old, its crystal structures still forming their first thoughts. "Evacuate them," I ordered, my voice resonating through the heart chamber. "Everyone who can move must move. Now." But we Grath do not move quickly. We are beings of stone and crystal, our bodies massive and dense. Even our fastest ships, grown from our lightest minerals, seem to crawl through space as we watched the Desh fleet descend on New Granite. Young Shard commanded the evacuation fleet. Her voice, when it came through our communication crystals, was sharp with horror. "Elder Eon, they're not even trying to verify if we're alive. They've begun systematic demolition of the surface structures. They're processing our people as raw materials." I forced myself to watch. We all did. Every elder in the heart chamber. We watched as Desh mining machines crushed living crystal into powder. We watched as they harvested the geothermal vents that gave us life. We watched as they destroyed in hours what had taken centuries to grow. The evacuation ship saved barely half the colony. When the survivors arrived at Resonance, Their crystal structures were cracked with grief. Many had lost parts of themselves, family units that had grown together for centuries, now partially crushed and separated. The younger ones would eventually regrow, adapt, survive. The elders, many of their patterns were too established, too complex to repair. That's when the Meridian Alliance finally responded to our pleas for help. They called an emergency session of the Galactic Council, and I felt hope crystallize in my core. Surely now, with evidence of the Desh brutality, they would act. But after several hours of avoiding discussion, I blew my cover. I should have known better. The council chamber was designed for carbon-based life forms. They had to remove 3 rows of seating to accommodate my crystalline bulk. I stood before representatives of 200 spacefaring species and told them of New Granite's destruction. The Meridian Speaker, a gaseous being contained within an environmental field, pulsed with what they claimed was sympathy. This is indeed troubling, but the Desh have filed proper mineral rights claims under galactic law. They completed all required scans for carbon-based life forms before beginning extraction. We are not carbon-based. My voice shook the chamber's windows. We are silicon-based, crystal-based, but we are alive. We think, we feel, we create, we grow. How can you watch us die and debate whether we truly live? The Zin representative, an insectoid being not unlike the Desh, clicked their mandibles. The philosophical question of mineral consciousness is fascinating, but it cannot override established resource rights. Perhaps, if you could transfer your claimed consciousness to designated preservation zones. That's when I noticed the Desh trade representative sitting quietly in the back of the chamber, and I realized they were all already buying our processed remains. Our murdered people were becoming components in their ships, their buildings, their technology. We were worth more to them dead than alive. The council debated for 3 more days. They passed 2 resolutions, one to establish a committee to study the possibility of mineral consciousness, and another to ensure humane mineral extraction practices. We were alone. When I returned to residence, I found young Shard waiting in the heart chamber. Her crystalline form hummed with an intensity I had never seen before. The human probe, she said, without preamble. I've been studying it further. Elder Eon, their history. They evolved on a world that was trying to kill them. Their planet had moving continents, explosive mountains, oceans that could swallow cities. And they didn't just survive, they learned to read the stones. They studied the ancient rocks to learn their world's history. They found fossils of extinct life and recognized them as their ancestors. They understand, better than any species we've met, that life doesn't always look like you expect it to. And speaking, she projected images from the probe onto the chamber walls. Humans studying rocks, digging up fossils, learning to read the language of stone. Humans building great structures of metal and glass, reaching for the stars even as their ground shook beneath them. Humans protecting endangered species that looked nothing like themselves. The message we sent, I said. Did they receive it? Did they respond? Shard's crystal structure vibrated with excitement. Better. Look at this energy reading from the outer system. It's massive, like nothing we've ever seen, and it's using the exact frequency specified in the probe's protocols. I studied the reading. She was right. Something enormous was approaching through FTL space. Something that had responded to our cry for help. But we had no time to celebrate. The Desh fleet had finished with New Granite and was moving toward our inner colonies. We had perhaps 10 days before they reached the capital. I gathered our remaining ships, our strongest warriors. We were beings of stone. We would not break easily. If help was truly coming, we needed only to hold out. Send word to all colonies, I commanded. Fall back to resonance. We make our stand here, at our heart, in the caves and crystals that gave us life. And we hold. Young Shard nodded, her crystal structure already reconfiguring for battle. We hold, she agreed. The procession moved forward. Above us, the first Desh ships appeared in our skies like approaching storm clouds. Our sensors screamed warnings as they began their descent, their mining lasers powering up to crack the planet's crust. And then, something new appeared on our screens. Something massive. The human fleet had arrived. They emerged from FTL like mountains torn from Earth itself. I had thought our ships were large, necessarily built to accommodate our crystalline bulk. But these were something else entirely. Black hulls that seemed to absorb starlight, massive engines glowing with barely contained power, and weapon systems that made our sensors overload trying to analyze them. The lead ship alone was larger than our capital city. The Desh noticed them too. Their mining fleet broke formation, reorganizing into defensive patterns, a transmission cut through all frequencies. Unknown fleet. This is a legally sanctioned mining operation. These mineral deposits have been properly claimed under Galactic law. Interference will result in... This is the General of the Terra Heavy Marines. The voice that interrupted was deep, resonant, not unlike our own crystal-carried communications. We received a distress call from the Grath nation. You are hereby ordered to cease all operations and withdraw from their sovereign territory. You will accept. There was a pause before the Desh commander responded. The Grath? The mineral formations? Impossible. Our scanners show no life signs. Your scanners, the general interrupted again, are calibrated for carbon-based life. Update your equipment and get out of their space. You have 5 minutes to begin withdrawal. Under Galactic law. 4 minutes 50 seconds. I felt my crystal structure vibrate with something between awe and amusement as the Desh commander sputtered. Through our visual feeds, I could see their ships wavering in formation, uncertain. You cannot. 4 minutes 30 seconds. And let me be clear, we're not here to debate. The Terran Heavy Marines don't do debate. We're here because a sentient species asked for help while facing extinction. That's all we needed to know. Or, young Shard, monitoring the transmissions beside me, suddenly straightened. Elder Eon, their ships, they're deploying something. Shard nodded. From the bellies of the human vassals came what I can only describe as artificial meteors. They blazed through space, each one larger than a Desh cruiser. As they drew closer, we could see they were dropships, armored so heavily they didn't need to worry about the heat of atmospheric entry. The Desh finally seemed to realize the humans weren't going to be reasoned with. They opened fire. Mining lasers repurposed as weapons, cutting beams meant to slice through rock. The human ships didn't even bother dodging. Their hulls, Shar breathed, they're absorbing the energy. The general's voice came again. Last warning, though I should mention, my Marines are really hoping you don't take it. They've been training for years to fight in high-gravity environments against superior numbers. They're eager to test themselves. Desh responded by launching their ground forces toward resonance. They still thought they were fighting miners protecting their claim, not warriors defending their home. They were wrong on both counts. The human dropships hit our atmosphere like orbital strikes, but their trajectories were precisely controlled. They landed in perfect defensive formations around our major population centers. When they opened, out stepped beings that made even us Grath pause in amazement. The Terran Heavy Marines lived up to their name. Each soldier stood nearly as tall as a young Grath, encased in powered armor that looked like it could shrug off a meteor impact. They carried weapons larger than most Desh were tall, and they moved with a fluid grace that should have been impossible under such weight. "Ground forces deployed," the general reported calmly. "Time expired. Marines, protect the Grath. Show them why Earth's gravity well made us strong." All of this is starting to sound a little bit like Earth's "protect the Grath." What followed was, I struggled to find words in any language to describe it adequately. The Marines moved like living avalanches, their heavy armor shrugging off Desh energy weapons. They returned fire with weapons that could crack our crystal formations if they hadn't been aimed with surgical precision at the Desh forces instead. In orbit, the human fleet demonstrated why they had let themselves be fired upon first. Their hulls hadn't just absorbed the Desh energy weapons, they had stored the power. They returned it now, amplified, precise, devastating. Desh ships began falling from our skies like rain. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, I stood in the heart chamber with the general himself. He was smaller outside his command chair, of course. All humans were small compared to us. But he moved with the same steady confidence we Grath did, the surety of something that knows its own strength. "Your responses indicated significant military experience," I observed. Yet the Desh claimed humans were unknown in this sector. He smiled. It was an expression I had learned to recognize from the probe data. "We're not unknown, we're just patient. We've been watching, learning, preparing. Humanity remembers being small, being vulnerable. We decided long ago that if we ever found others in that position, we would be ready to help." The Galactic Council will be receiving a strongly worded message about their definition of sentient rights, he interrupted, along with evidence of several violations of their own laws regarding genocide. "We may be new here, but we did our homework. The Desh aren't the only ones who should be worried." Young Shard, who had been absorbing this exchange, vibrated with curiosity. "You really don't find us strange, impossible?" the HQ said. The general actually laughed. "Strange? My ancestors found bacteria living in volcanic vents. They found life frozen in Antarctic ice. They found creatures that could survive the vacuum of space. Hell, they found shrimp living in rocks 6 miles under the ocean. The idea that intelligent crystals could evolve? That's not even the weirdest thing I've heard this week." He grew serious then. The real impossibility would be finding life among the stars, and then deciding some of it doesn't count because it doesn't look like us. That's not humanity's way. Not anymore. In the days that followed, everything changed. The Galactic Council, faced with human evidence and human diplomats who had mastered the art of speaking softly while their fleet carried big guns, suddenly discovered that their definitions of life needed updating. The Desh faced sanctions and reparation demands, and we Grath found ourselves with an ally that didn't just accept us, but understood us in ways we had never expected. That was 10 years ago. Now, our crystal cities grow alongside human habitats. Our children learn about both geology and biology, about the strange carbon-based beings who came from a world of constantly shifting stone and decided that meant they should be ready for anything. Young Shard heads our joint scientific institute, where humans help us explore the galaxy we once thought had rejected us. And me. I still stand in the heart chamber, but now I watch human children pressing their hands against our crystal walls in wonder, asking their parents how rocks can think. And I hear their parents answer, "Life finds a way." Our job is to help protect it, wherever and however we find it. The humans have a saying, "A friend in need is a friend indeed." We Grath have our own version now. When the galaxy turned to stone, humanity made themselves our bedrock. Captain Ritofo tells us that we have a source of a great deal of food supply. We don't forget our friends. Neither, I'm glad to say, do they. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. Feel free to comment and share this story too. It helps the channel grow. Let's make this channel huge together.